Hey guys, this is Mike Mahaffey, the old bastard BJJ guy, here for BJJ Mental Models. Back in my day, we had to walk uphill in the snow both ways to get to the academy just to learn some crappy technique from a random purple belt. You kids have it so easy because now you can just subscribe to BJJ Mental Models Premium and get tons of great audio courses to learn new techniques, enhance your mindset, and entertain yourself. You can even get personalized rolling reviews from some of your favorite BJJ Mental Models coaches, including me. It's like having your own seminar, you spoiled little whippersnappers. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe to BJJ Mental Models Premium right now, get off my lawn, and go train.
Hey, welcome to BJJ Mental Models, episode 308. I'm Steve Kwan. BJJ Mental Models is your guide to a conceptual and intelligent jiu-jitsu approach, and today we're going worldwide because I am joined with a new sensational coach from Australia. Actually, I guess we can't call you that, but you've certainly been doing a lot of media recently. I've got Mr. Jake O'Driscoll on the line. How's it going, Jake?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you putting me on. I've listened to your show for a long time, and I'm a big fan, so I really appreciate having the opportunity to chat, and looking forward to it.
Amazing, sir. Well, tell me about yourself and your coaching. For those who might not have heard your name, maybe they've been living under a rock.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself, where you train, what your style looks like, everything that people might want to know to get acquainted with you.
Yeah, I'm from Perth, Western Australia, so very isolated. I think it's the most isolated major city in the world, or very close to. I've got my own gym there, Essence BJJ. Recently just coached Adele Fornarino to her 2 ADCC world titles, so that's probably why you'll be hearing my voice a little bit recently. But we do have a lot of other students too that have done some really good things. Myself, I compete quite regularly, nationally and internationally. Definitely only no gi. I haven't touched the gi in a little while, although Adele is getting on me to get back into the gi to help her for the gi season next year. My style, I'm definitely more of a leg locker. I'm definitely more into that kind of game, but I feel like I'm pretty well-rounded. And especially as a coach, I can definitely coach very well-rounded. I can coach from the beginning level to the expert level, but one of my, I'd say, areas of expertise is helping athletes go from being good to great, which is, I think, what we're focused on today. So I'm happy to give some insight into that. Yeah,
absolutely. That is exactly where I know you from and where I think a lot of other people know you from. Adele Fornarino just had, I mean, would we call that one of maybe the greatest run of all time in ADCC? I can't think of anything entirely close. I mean, not just winning her division, but winning the absolute, despite the fact that she's not that big. She still went up all of those weight classes. I think it's definitely got to be a highlight reel performance in the history of ADCC.
Yeah, when I talk about this, man, it's very difficult because there's so many things that she did that were more than just winning the 2 championships, you know, like being the smallest, being the first Australian, being the first female at 55 to do the double. You know, she's completely natural. She doesn't take any performance enhancing. So she's definitely on top of that. You know, there's so many firsts that she did. The run she had, 4 out of 6 submissions. She beat multiple champions of different organizations. It just goes on and on. You know, she beat the GOAT, in my opinion. Bia Mosquito is the GOAT, and Adele beat her the first time they met. So definitely up there with one of the best runs ever. You know, but I mean, it's always debatable. There's definitely some other performances where I think are just up there as well, but we're very happy with what she did and very proud of her.
What is the deal with all you Australians, man? It's like everywhere I look in the jiu-jitsu landscape now, there's just Australians everywhere. Is being Australian the new meta? Is there something that you guys are doing down there that's just different?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always had the talent. I think we just haven't really had the resources to get to the big stage in terms of like the travel and the opportunities and stuff. But I think, you know, I always say Kit Dale opened the door, and then Lachlan and Craig walked through it, and now the door stayed open for, you know, Levi and Adele and Lucas Kaynard and a lot of others. You know, we've always had good athletes, just sporadic, but now we've been able to put it together like as a group, as a collective group. And, you know, a lot of those athletes at the highest level, they all support each other. They either train together or, you know, they'll be messaging and sharing each other's stuff. And I think that really helps, you know, keep the collective at the top level. But the talent is here, man. It's just we're so far away. It's so difficult for us to get to, you know, America or the UK or Brazil. You know, it's a 20+ hour flight to every single one of those places. So a lot of Australians that don't have the financial resources to get there are struggling. But Lachlan Giles really helped with that last year. And then, now with the door being open, a lot more sponsorship opportunities are coming through. A lot of bigger shows in Australia are helping athletes. So there's definitely, you're going to see a lot more is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot more athletes that we've kept secret here that are about to explode.
Amazing, man. Well, on that topic, I think that's as good a transition as any to what we wanted to discuss here today. I'll maybe kick this off. So for those who don't know, we recently launched an entirely new podcast on BJJ Mental Models Premium. If you're a subscriber, you should already have the episode there. It's called BJJ Today, hosted by Andrea Tang, probably best known for her work as a journalist at the Jiu-Jitsu Times. And we wanted to have a news and culture podcast that's more focused on current events than what we do here on Mental Models, where we're talking more about kind of like timeless educational concepts. And in the first episode, just recently we published it, Adele and Jake were both on, tag teamed that episode and talked about Adele's amazing run at ADCC and also Jake's coaching and how those pieces fit together to create such just an incredible performance. And as I was going through listening to that episode, Jake, one of the things that you said that really stuck out and I thought might make for a great topic of conversation was you said the goal with Adele was never to make her a good athlete. She was already a good athlete. Anyone like that is probably going to have good success across the board wherever they go. The goal was to get her from good to great. And I think that's just a fascinating distinction. I would love to unpack that because, so many people that listen to this, right, are kind of hobbyists or maybe casual competitors, or maybe they're even pro competitors that haven't cracked up into that next level yet. But I'd be ultra curious to hear from you what changes when you're going to that level. When you're talking about winning a national or a regional competition, you're maybe talking about being good. But when you're talking about putting on a lifetime performance at ADCC and you're talking about being the best in the world, or maybe someone else's case, one of the best in the world, what does that look like? How is that different from just regular grappling and regular teaching?
Yeah, so the way I always looked at it, man, was I didn't want to look inside jiu-jitsu and try and find examples that we could copy or follow, because I don't believe jiu-jitsu is as professional a sport as people think it is just yet. I think it's getting there, and I think it's getting a lot better, but it's not there yet. So I always looked outside, and I always use the big American sports as my examples, your NFL, your NBA, etc. And I just looked at what they were doing, coaches, players, staff, everybody in the organizations and how they were acting to really cross that barrier, So with someone like Adele, like I said, she was good at jiu-jitsu. She's always been good at jiu-jitsu. There was no issues there. But she needed to become a professional to cross that barrier and really stand out. So what that looks like, man, is she says no stone unturned, but she's not joking. We cover every single aspect of her career on and off the mat, and that doesn't just mean her nutrition and her strength and conditioning. That's what a lot of people will attribute being a professional to. Like she lifts her weights and she eats her vegetables, but it's not that, man. It's, rocking up on time. It's doing her study. It's going to bed on time. It's the way she interacts with her training partners. It's the way she interacts with her coaches. It's her relationship with social media. It's her branding. It's her marketing. It's her whole team around her. Man, there's so much we could talk about that makes Adele who she is as a professional, not so much as a person, because she's still an amazing person regardless of how good she is at jiu-jitsu. But as an athlete, we really needed to increase that, and that's a big belief I've always had, but she hasn't always had. So it was really a case of her trusting me as not just as a coach, but as a person that had her best interests at heart and really show her, hey, look, this is what I think can help you transcend that next step, because she could probably win ADCC on talent alone. She's that good, but she wouldn't have a performance like she had on the weekend if it was just talent. You know what I mean? So there's other aspects too, man. Strategy and game plan. The amount of footage that I watched for those girls was ridiculous. I've actually enjoyed having a break from not watching women's jiu-jitsu at the moment because it is amazing, but I watch so much of it that I'm just like, I want to go and do something else for a little bit. But we don't let anything get in the way of what she wanted to do. You know what I mean? We have a no excuse policy. Accountability and responsibility are two massive words in our vocabulary in terms of what we do every single day. Adele is accountable to herself. She's accountable to me, and she's responsible for her own jiu-jitsu, and I'm responsible for my coaching duties. I take my coaching duties very seriously. I coach like a professional. And when I tell you I study for 3 hours, I study for 3 hours. I'm not just making it up. Yeah, there's a lot to it, man. There's a lot to it.
That's a great lesson there, and something that I think would catch people off guard. I think many people would expect you to say the difference between good and greatness is some crazy jujitsu system that they haven't heard of before, or maybe you have to create the right constraint-based training environment, or you have to be in a room full of killers. But is it really as simple as it comes down to showing up on time and getting up on time and eating well and sleeping well and just acting like a professional? I know you said that as well in the interview on BJJ Today with Andrea. You really drove home the importance of being a professional. And I do have to say, as someone who's kind of existed in the sport and observed the culture and the direction that it's gone over the past 10 plus years, it's really refreshing to hear people talk about professionalism as being important, because that's just never something that really has been taken seriously in jiu-jitsu. And I would want to hear your thoughts on that. Is it really just that simple? Just get up on time, act like a pro, show up to your media appearances? Or is there something different that's actually happening at the technical level as well when you say be professional?
No, not at all. Like, I don't coach Adele any different to how I coach my hobbyist class in terms of technique. You know, I show her the same things. We go over the same concepts, and it works at the highest level because jiu-jitsu works. You know, it's people that don't. Jiu-jitsu only fails when people do it wrong. You know, jiu-jitsu is always going to be perfect. It's us that do it wrong. So I don't change that in any regards. But when it comes to like the professionalism, people take this the wrong way. They feel like, you know, especially if you're not acting like professional, they feel judged, or they feel like I'm pointing fingers at them. I'm not at all, man. Like, I love that people just want to have fun and they want to come in, do a couple of rolls, go to the beach, that jiu-jitsu lifestyle. That's amazing. You know, I don't begrudge that at all. But if you want to do something that Adele has done or was aiming to do, like I said, be great. You have to do more than what others are doing. Hard work is the bare minimum. You know what I mean? Training hard that's your job. I did 10 rounds today. Sweet. So did my 8-year-old child. You know, that's not a win for me. You know what I mean? It's everything else that you do. So we really focus on that. But at the same time, we only focus on ourselves. So when we take someone like Adele, and I'll use Adele as the easiest example just because of what she did. But again, like I said, I do have other athletes and I coach them all differently. With Adele, it's the relationship we have. So I found a structure for her training that she resonates with, is able to retain, and is able to stay consistent at. So it's not me chucking 10 rounds a day at her, you know what I mean? Because Adele wouldn't do that very well. It's knowing when she needs to do specific skill development, and knows when she needs to do rounds, and knows when she needs to pull back or go harder, or when today is a fun day completely. Like, people think when I talk about professionalism, all we do is like kill each other every day. Not at all. Some days Adele will be like, hey, what am I doing today? I'm like, enjoying the day. Go and have fun. Like, just whatever you want to do. You want to do flying triangles? Do flying triangles. You want to wrestle? Wrestle. Whatever is enjoyable for you today. You know what I mean? It's a lot of just making sure that the structure in place. And I think that comes down to the relationship with coach and student, making sure that she knows that whatever I'm trying to do is at her best interest, and whatever I tell her to do has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the fact that it's going to help her in her skill development and getting better. There's a lot of ego in coaching these days that people want to take away from their own students. Oh, my student won this, but they wouldn't have done it without me. Or they wouldn't have done it without the team, you know, or this logo or whatever. Man, that's ridiculous. You know, Adele won ADCC. I just helped her a little bit, you know, so like it's making sure that the athlete's interest comes first all the time. Tom Brady is a perfect example. He's known as the GOAT, the greatest quarterback ever. He's won 7 Super Bowl rings, 6 of those with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick never took away from Tom Brady. Does that make sense? Like, he wasn't Bill Belichick's show. It was the Tom Brady show with the Patriots, and Bill Belichick was the coach. He just had to get the best out of his athletes every day, and then they'd win Super Bowls. He's not on the field. He's not throwing the passes. He's not running for touchdowns. He's giving them the opportunity to be what they are.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And it's interesting because it sounds like what you're saying is that really the secret, if there is one, is just being attentive to what the student or the athlete needs and making sure that you point them in that direction. And presumably that would be the same approach that you use for Adele or for a hobbyist like me who just shows up at your gym and maybe doesn't want to be a world champion, maybe doesn't even want to be a champion, just wants to have fun. But the perspective of you as the coach, it sounds like it's mostly unchanging it. If I'm understanding you correct, it sounds like you're saying there isn't a playbook for this where you just follow these steps, but it's more just about gently guiding the athlete along their way by being attentive to what they need next.
Yeah, I think coaches themselves, it's very easy to coach a certain way in jiu-jitsu. Literally, my only role is to show you a technique. You know what I mean? I don't have to structure a class a certain way. You pay me to show you jiu-jitsu. I can show you a technique in 10 minutes. You know what I mean? But we have a class structure that usually goes for 90 minutes or 2 hours and involves this and that. So it's very easy to be a a lazy coach per se. I don't agree with that. I don't do that. I think it's wrong. I think that the most important thing is your students, as a jiu-jitsu coach, and you should be giving them your best all the time. So I try and do that as much as possible, and I'm human. I'm not perfect, but I try and do that as often as I possibly can. And that is being attentive, but that's being attentive to your individual students. Now, the bigger your gym gets, the harder that's going to be. But at the same time, you should be available to your students to ask you questions specifically about your game, specifically about your goals and things like that. And again, that doesn't have to be competition. We're known as a competition gym, but until you walk in the doors, you realize we're not. I never really focus on that, man. If you come to me and tell me you want to do something, I'll help you 100%. But I never push people in that direction or force them to do something that they don't want to do. You never want to compete? Don't compete. One of my black belts, he's probably one of the best guys in the gym. He stopped competing at blue belt. And I've never said a word to him about, oh man, maybe you should get back out there. Maybe you should try this. I don't want to do it. So he doesn't have to do it. So it's understanding the individual and being able to cater towards them in an environment where you're in a team. I think that's the biggest trouble, is that you're a team of individuals. So how do you bring them all together for a common goal, but increase their skill development at a rapid rate? It's a difficult balance, but it's doable.
Yeah. Understood. Now, it sounds like a big part of it is just being attentive to needs, but how do you do that? Because you mentioned that there are lazy coaches out there, and I think this is worth touching on. In our community, people always say, who are these lazy coaches, Steve? Because everyone that I know, they care deeply and passionately about their students, and they're obsessing over how they can be a better coach. And my answer is always, that's probably because you're a part of a self-selecting group, right? I mean, if you really care deeply and passionately about how you coach and you're looking for new methods to get better and you're constantly refining your system, odds are you're surrounding yourself by other coaches who do the same. But from my experience, just randomly visiting gyms, I mean, I don't have a statistic, but it really feels like the majority of coaches out there still basically kind of wing it. They provide mat space to train, and in terms of the instruction, it's often on par with watching a few YouTube videos, right? It's not a very tailored or interactive experience. And sometimes, when you visit a class, sometimes I'm sitting there thinking, kind of feels like this instructor probably just watched this on YouTube 30 minutes before the class, and now they're teaching it. And there's not really a plan or a structure, and there isn't really a goal that they're steering me towards. They're just giving me techniques. So I wonder, is being attentive like that a skill as a coach? Do you find that there's a science or a practice behind how you can tell what an athlete needs next? Is there a way that you can know what the next thing is that you need to give to them?
Yeah, definitely, man. I think it's just, again, it comes down to the individual coach. I can't speak for other coaches. I can only speak for myself. I'm obsessed with this game. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. I study because I want to, not because I have to. This is something we can get down the line in this conversation, but we talk about this all the time. We don't have to be at ADCC. We want to be at ADCC. We don't have to compete. We want to compete. And it's the same with my coaching, man. I don't have to be an attentive coach, but I want to be. I don't want my students to come to class and think that I don't care about their development. So I will, watch, and I will make sure that if there is something that I see that they should work on, then I'll let them know. I'm very upfront with how I coach. I'm very upfront as a person. So I enjoy doing that. Sometimes it depends on the individual though. Sometimes me not talking to you or not responding to you or not giving you details is actually helping you because you figure it out yourself. It's just learning what the individual needs, you know what I mean? And it's just being attentive while you're in class and outside of class. So it depends on the athlete or the person. Obviously with the hobbyists, I try to be more hands-off because I want them to enjoy what they're doing. And it can get difficult if, you're being micromanaged per se of, hey, do this or do that or focus on this or focus on that. But when it comes to the athletes, I'm definitely very hands-on, man. And I'm making sure that you're doing the right things all the time. And I can be super annoying because I will not give you an inch because I won't take an inch. Like I said, I have a no excuse policy. You not having training partners is not an excuse for you not getting work in. You not getting enough sleep is not an excuse. You not drinking enough water is not an excuse. You fighting with your missus or your boyfriend or whatever is not an excuse. Unfortunately, I've had some life events where they're quite terrible and I'm still showing up to work and doing what I need to do and training and competing and whatnot. So if I'm doing it, I'm going to expect it from my athletes and they know that. So it's the attention to detail goes far beyond technique is what I'm trying to say. It goes to the individual, their personalities and the connection we have, what their goals are and how they're going about it. You know, I don't really listen to people anymore in terms of what they want to do. I more watch what they show me they want to do. And I think that's way more important.
Right, right. Now, it's interesting you say all of this because it sounds like your coaching approach is quite holistic. And the technique is really just one piece of a broader puzzle of overall performance that you're looking at. And that's interesting to me. For example, I wouldn't expect a coach to be helping an athlete manage their sleep, not because I don't think it's important. It absolutely is a key element of performance, but just that most of the coaches that I talk to are hyper fixated on the technique and not so focused on the other things. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, when we say that technique is only part of the coaching, what are the other elements that you guys are involved in? Are you also talking about things like sports psychology? I mean, you mentioned nutrition, strength and nutrition as well. Are these things that you're involved with? Are you the main coach there or kind of the contributor of a broader team?
Yeah, so I definitely focus on the mental side of things massively. I think that's a big role I play for my athletes, and it's something that I've studied for a long, long time. It's something I struggled with as an athlete, still do sometimes. I think it's a huge part of our game, so I try and understand it as much as possible. I believe that everybody should learn how they want to learn. So what I mean by that is I tell my students all the time, if I'm your only resource for jiu-jitsu, you're selling yourself short. I don't care how good I am as an athlete, as a coach, like learn from everywhere, man. And I do the same with Adele. You know what I mean? She obviously trains at Absolute with Lachlan Giles. And she says, Lockie said this, sweet. It doesn't bother me. Like I'm not going to be like, oh, but I do it this way. Hey, if that works for you, do that. Like that's what's important. It's your jiu-jitsu at the end of the day, and you need to take responsibility. This is where responsibility comes in, right? You need to take responsibility for your own jiu-jitsu. I can help you and guide you, but at the end of the day, you need to walk off those mats, whether it's training or competition, and be like, I did my jiu-jitsu today the way I wanted to do it. You know what I mean? Whether you won or lost, or you had a good day or a bad day, I take responsibility every day. So you need to do that. You can't turn around and blame your coach or your training partners or whoever. So if you are only learning from me, that's your choice. Take responsibility for that. If you're learning from multiple sources, that's your choice. Take responsibility for that. Neither are wrong, but you have to take responsibility for it. So this is a big thing we do all the time. We talk about this all the time. And the other thing is you can always change it. Hey, I just want to learn from Jake. Actually, that's not working. I want to learn from so-and-so. That's not working. I want to learn from these people. Now I found it. You know what I mean? Like when I started coaching Adele, I didn't really coach her the way I coach her now. She was just a normal student and we were just going through the motions. And she was having success, but she wasn't having the kind of success she thought she could and I thought she could. And we were like, okay, we need to change that. And then I needed to change as a coach and she needed to change as a student. She was doing talented things, but she wasn't doing professional things. And I wasn't doing professional things. I wasn't acting like the coach that she needed. So I took responsibility and she took responsibility. And then you see the result. The result is the easy part. You know, that's the part where everyone sees and it's clap on the back and it's great. That's not what we focus on. We focus on the process and we enjoy the process. And you see it all the time in memes on Instagram and things like that, or enjoying the process, but no one really listens to what they're saying. Like the process isn't, again, your 10 rounds, man. It's you getting to the gym on time. It's being in your clothes ready to train when the buzzer goes. It's not sitting out rounds. It's making sure that when you touch hands, it's when the round starts, not 30 seconds into the round. It's not taking respite. Like it's all these things put together. That's the process. If you want to go to that next level, you have to do all these things consistently.
It's interesting you bring that up because I can just say anecdotally that I totally understand where you're coming from. A lot of jiu-jitsu people will look at what they do on the mat and think, man, I live this hard, challenging life and I'm super disciplined. But if you look at the way they structured their lives around it, often they struggle, or maybe they neglect things either because they don't think they're important or because maybe they're not as disciplined as they thought they were. And I can tell you, as someone who spends a lot of time trying to sort out media appearances and book sponsorships and stuff, it can be hard. Much of the time, the athlete is their own worst enemy. There have been many times where I've thought to myself, like, look, I'm trying to help you. You know, I'm trying to either promote someone or I'm trying to sponsor them. I'm literally trying to give them money, but I just can't because they're not really taking it seriously or they're taking it for granted. And something that you're bringing up there, driving it home, it's just, I think it's an interesting point because people always complain about how hard it is to make money in this sport, how hard it is to seek out sponsorships. But I think there's also the argument to be made that a lot of athletes probably aren't putting in the work there to do that. Those are skill sets that, I mean, if you look at professionally trained media athletes, you're expected to acquire. And these are things that, I mean, again, other than you, I haven't heard many coaches talk about how to do those properly. They're so focused on the nuts and bolts of the technique.
It's a massive part, man. And that's where the money comes from. And that's where the next level of the sport's going to come from. And people talk about this all the time. Oh, like jiu-jitsu, nobody watches it. That's why we got no money. We'll make people watch it. Make it exciting. Exciting is, yeah, matches are exciting. I get that. But so are athletes. So are the lifestyle of athletes. So is the way you go about things, right? But that, again, it comes from a professional standpoint. If LeBron James was not acting like a professional and only doing his sport, he's not going to reach the levels that he's reached. And people will argue with that, and they can. I'm more than open to discussion about that. But he transcended the sport on multiple platforms. He's a billionaire from his businesses, not from just what he does on the court. You know what I mean? There's so many different entities that go into LeBron James as a business, not just as an athlete. It transcends that. So if you want to get paid, obviously we're a long way off what he gets paid, but if you want to get paid the bigger dollars and you want to make a living from it, you have to do those things and consistently. I don't like social media. It looks like I do because I post consistently, but I don't. If I could get rid of it, I would. But I know I earn a certain amount of money by doing what I do, which affords me a certain lifestyle for my daughter and for myself that is sustainable through my passion. So I have to do it. It's part of the process. And this is what the athletes need to understand. You need to be able to do both. And if you can't, hire somebody to help you. I hate it when athletes go and spend $200 on protein and BCAAs and all that and then miss weight. And I'm like, how did you miss weight? Oh, like my nutrition was off. Don't spend the money on the protein. Spend the money on the nutritionist. Oh, you don't understand marketing and branding? Hire someone or talk to someone. The beauty about jiu-jitsu, especially at the hobbyist level, is there's so many different people in the gym from all walks of life. Start conversations with people. Oh, you're a digital marketing manager. Hey, man, I've got a question. Oh, you're a plumber. Man, I've got a question. There's avenues for you to do this. You look at Adele. Yes, I coach her, but other people also have input. She has an amazing manager that you know, Sarah. She was on your podcast, I think, the other day. She did an episode. She's amazing. You know what I mean? She goes above and beyond for Adele in everything that she does because Adele doesn't understand it. So she seeked out someone that understood better than she does. And now she's learning. She's filming a video or a series for Submeta with Lachlan Giles. And Lachlan said, hey, I can edit the stuff for you, or we can use my editor, or I can show you how to do it. What did Adele do? She asked to see how to do it, went to Lachlan's house, spent hours learning, and now she's learning how to edit her own videos. So in the future, she can do that herself. She's upskilling off the mat, not just on the mat. That's a professional. Does that make sense? Like it's not just the technique part of things. She's learning to be a professional in all aspects of her life. If you listen to her talk in interviews and not just podcasts, but like the camera straight in her face, like she talks like a professional. She acts like a professional, and she's Aussie. We're usually pretty laid back and just like, oh, I go with the flow. It is what it is. But again, Adele doesn't want to be good. She wants to be great. She wants to transcend the sport. She wants to be the greatest, not female of all time. She wants to be the greatest athlete of all time. So she has to do these things. It's different to what other people need to do to achieve their goals. And this is where the lines blur a little bit. If your goal is to win nationals at whatever belt rank that is, your goal is just as important as Adele wanting to win ADCC. Don't get it twisted. Just because her goal seems like it's bigger than yours, it's not. Whatever the most important thing is to you is the most important thing. Yeah, and I talk about this all the time with my athletes. Just because Adele wants to do this doesn't mean that I think she's better than you as a person or anything like that. Her goals are not more important than yours. But it's the individual that gets it twisted. Oh, she must think she's better than us. No, she doesn't. She just knows what she's capable of and wants to push herself. Don't get mad at her for wanting to push herself because you don't want to push yourself. Because she's not going to get mad at you because you don't want to push yourself.
Yeah. Something that you mentioned there, which I think is worth double clicking on. You talked about Adele actually taking ownership, not just of showing up and recording an instructional, but also even learning how to edit it. And I have to tell you, I feel that pain as someone who got into podcasting and had to self-teach himself how to do audio engineering.
Yep.
Let me tell you, first of all, everyone out there who thinks they're going to start a jiu-jitsu podcast, audio is 100 times harder than you think it is.
Yeah.
And video, I presume, is 100 times harder than that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you can always upskill. You can always fill those gaps yourself. And I think a big part of a decision that we all have to make is when we do something ourselves, when it serves us to do it ourselves, and when it serves us to delegate it off to someone else. I know athletes often have this feeling that they need to kind of do everything themselves because it's a solo sport. Jiu-jitsu is an individual sport, but it takes a team to build an athlete, which I think is true. And I think you also brought up rightfully that relying on one coach is a big bottleneck and a big weakness because, as you've established, being a good coach is about a lot more than just your technical chops. There are many things that go into athletic performance. And if you are relying on one person to simultaneously be an expert in all of those areas, you're probably selling yourself short and you're probably putting too much weight on that one person, too much pressure on that one person. It makes sense, I think, to seek the expertise of everyone who can help you. And I mean, again, if you've got one of those coaches who doesn't like that, who wants you to be their exclusive property, I think that's probably a bit of a warning sign, right? We live in a much more collaborative time.
Yeah, I see it a lot, man, and definitely a little bit more now. I mean, obviously, I've been involved in this space for a little while in terms of trying to get people to act like professionals and the way they train and the way they are. I get it a little bit more now because it's funny, man. People think that if their athlete comes to talk to me or sends me a message or wants to train with me, that I want to steal their athlete and I want to, steal everything they built. And when they succeed, Jake took it from me. Man, I don't care at all. I've got amazing students. I've got amazing friends and I've got amazing athletes. I don't need yours. If they come to me and want to help, my purpose in jiu-jitsu is to help people, bro. My purpose is to help people with their mental health. My purpose is to help people see something that makes them happy. That's it. All the titles and the accolades, that's just a cherry on top. I don't want to steal your athletes. But if you can't give them what they want, they need to move on. And you need to understand that that's okay. Who are you to stand there and tell them that their goals aren't as important as them paying you membership? So I know Adele one day probably won't need me. I don't know when. Hopefully not anytime soon. She blows up my phone every day, so I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. But she might need someone else. And I'm okay with that because it's her career. It's her life. At the end of the day, she needs to turn around again and take responsibility. I made those choices. And it was because of me that I've done this or this. Because when she goes to bed at night, it's her that has to make sure that she's happy with what's happening. So it's very easy to get lost in that. You know what I mean? I get it. You put so much time and effort into a student and then they get to a certain level and they might leave you. It's heartbreaking. But it's part of our job. And there's so many other jobs in the world that you probably don't want to do that have just as heartbreaking, heartbreaking moments in your career that change you. You know what I mean? And I can't speak from experience, but I assume that a doctor, every time they lose a patient, they probably lose a little bit of themselves. You know what I mean? They probably feel like I could have done more when maybe they couldn't. There's multiple careers out there that this stuff happens. It's up to the coaches to understand that it's okay to not know everything. It is. I tell my guys all the time, man, I don't know. I'll ask. I'll find out. I don't know right now. You know what I mean? But it's, again, that's responsibility. But a lot of people these days don't want to take responsibility for it.
Yeah. Something that we've always said on the show is that it's often a good idea to know what your strengths are, really double down on those and delegate to the other experts where you can. But there are also times when it makes sense to just say, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. And you brought up a good example of Adele learning to do video editing herself, right? And similarly, you will hear athletes protest a lot about the kind of things you're saying. They will say things like, well, I don't want to be doing my social media or doing media appearances because I'm an athlete and I'm operating at the highest levels here and I need every moment I have to be in the gym training. I mean, and I understand that perspective, right? At the end of the day, if you're going to be an athlete, it intuitively makes sense that you'd want to maximize your training time. But how does an athlete know, and maybe this is a difficult question, but how does an athlete know when something is really important for them to do it themselves versus when it's something that they can delegate or punt down the road? Is there something that you look for where you would say, Adele, no, you really got to be the one to do this? Or are there some things that can have some slack?
I think when it comes to this question, man, the athletes need to understand if they're listening to this. I'm not telling you that my way is the only way. I'm not telling you that. I think this is the way I get the best out of athletes and the best out of my athletes. And Thankfully, the results show that it works to some extent, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. This is just my opinion. In terms of like what the athletes, how they delegate their time and what's important and stuff to them, yeah, I agree that the social media and the, learning different skills off the mat, it can be time consuming, but also like we believe in treating jiu-jitsu like a season, right? So in jiu-jitsu, we don't really have seasons. People say gi and no gi season, but you're competing all round if you do both, all year round when you do both. There's no major leagues that do that. Does that make sense? So we can't do that. We need to make sure we're delegating our time efficiently. So right now, Adele is getting multiple offers for fights, obviously, but we haven't returned to a training camp yet, or I haven't heard back into a training cycle that's more than like a 4 or 5 each day. She's training every day. She can't help herself, but more than a 4 or 5. So she has time to learn these skills. If she had come to me during ADCC camp and said, oh, I'm going to do this, I would have said no. No, we're focused on this. So it's more about like making sure you're understanding where you're at in the time frame and where you're at in your cycle of training, right? Kainen's another big example. Kainen Duarte, people always say, oh, he never looks as good when he goes to ADCC. Yeah, that's the point, because ADCC is the goal for him, right? That's his biggest goal. He wants to be at his best on that day. So if you beat him outside of that, that doesn't mean you didn't beat Kainen Duarte. You did. That doesn't mean you didn't beat the best Kainen Duarte. You did. You beat the best on that day that you competed against him. But that doesn't mean that has to be his focus. If his focus is ADCC, of course he's not going to be training a million miles an hour 12 months out. He's going to put into a camp or a cycle or understand. So again, Adele wants to do the gi season. I have to start researching and watching gi matches now so that when she competes early next year in the gi, I'm prepared as a coach for the trends, the matches, who's winning, who's an up-and-comer, who is coming from lower belt ranks that we might have to look out for, all these things. I have to start preparing now. Yeah, it comes in cycles. I have time now because ADCC is done. I don't have to focus on ADCC right now. The mentality side of things is consistent, but the physical part of training doesn't have to be all systems go every single day. So we need to break that up. I believe in quality over quantity. If you're training 2-3 times a day, that's amazing. But if it's not quality work, all props to you, man. Like, you're not really getting anywhere. We focus on skill development and quality over quantity all the time. If you're training, more than, let's say, 3 hours on the mat a day in terms of like in a session, let's say, you're not really getting quality. Maybe you're drilling. Let's say you're drilling for 5 hours. That's fine. That's low impact, right? But you should still be able to do things off the mat in that case. If you're sparring hard for 2 hours, you're probably going to need a nap. You're probably going to need a rest. You're probably going to need to just chill out a bit. But you're always going to find time to be able to do this. And it just depends what you want. People will look at this and say, oh, it's too much, or he doesn't know what he's talking about, or blah. That's fine, because I don't work with you. I work with Adele, and Adele wants to be great. That's the distinction, man. The distinction is she doesn't want to be good. She wants to be great. So she has to do these things.
Yeah. Something that I have noticed that the very best athletes do is they're really good at compartmentalizing their time and knowing what the priority is at any given moment. I will often, when it comes to booking people on shows like this, sometimes if there's a big camp, I might not hear from one of our contacts for months because I know they're busy. And then suddenly they get a moment, and then we can do a bunch of collaboration while they have a window. Good professional athletes are really good at picking their shots. So they don't try to do everything at once. They do what's important right now at once. And if there's something else that they can park until they're able to give it the full attention, they'll do that. If there's something that really it doesn't make sense for them to be the person who's doing it, they'll delegate it. That's something that I think is very important, being deliberate with your time. And yeah, I agree. I've seen many athletes too, who they'll be very good at doing things like turning negatives into positives. So if they have an injury or if something happens and they're not able to compete, they find another way to be productive in that time, whether it be doing media or specific areas of study or even networking or running seminars, shooting instructionals. There's always something productive that you can be doing, and being intentional with that time is so helpful.
It's so helpful and so important. Like I mentioned earlier, hard work is the bare minimum. You training on the mat, like that's the minimum you have to do. Like if you want to compete in jiu-jitsu, you have to do that. That's the minimum, right? Well, you can't train on the mat 12 hours a day. Like you need to be doing other things. So delegate, like you said, delegate your time. When you're doing, when you're eating dinner, you could be doing something. You could be having conversations, you could be networking. I wear many different hats. Being a dad always comes first. a lot of the time I get my coaching stuff done or I get my study done or any of this stuff is when my daughter is at school, so that I can make sure I prioritize my time with her when she finishes school. Now, sometimes I have to work, obviously, and I coach at night, so she's with me in the gym at night. But when she's at school, I know I have a window of, let's say, 6 hours where I need to train, where I need to study, where I need to network and do any of my media and marketing, and I have to do all the admin for the gym. That's my time to do that. Or, because I own my own business, I can sleep all day. No one's going to tell me any different, but I understand what's our priority and I understand how I need to manage my time. And again, it flows back, man. Everything flows back. I take accountability and responsibility for not just myself, but for the workload I put out so that others can enjoy it.
Right. Now, you earlier said that you tell your athletes, we don't need to be here. We want to be here. And I really love that saying. I do think that's probably one of those things that every athlete would agree it's the right mindset. But I would venture to guess that probably almost all athletes struggle with really internalizing that. People really struggle when they try something big and they're not able to succeed. And I know that people will often say, hey, I'm just happy to be here. But I think athletes sometimes really struggle with having their identities too attached to the win or the loss. How do you help an athlete really just detach from that and just enjoy the moment and the opportunity that they've been given? And do you believe that that mindset actually improves their performance, or is this just more of a general well-being mental health issue?
No, I think it improves their performance because they have more belief in themselves and they go to a spot where they feel more comfortable. And obviously the more comfortable we can feel out on the competition, the chances of success are a lot higher. I think it's an ongoing process. It's something I work with Adele with a lot. And then I have another athlete, Reese Allen, completely different to Adele. Man, I have to approach his mentality completely different to her mentality. So it's definitely understanding the mechanics of both of them. But, it's a constant process, and one, we put too much pressure on ourselves. And I think what you mentioned there, trying to distinguish between yourself as a jiu-jitsu athlete and just as an individual person. I struggled with this for many, many years. And you need to realize that at the end of the day, it's just jiu-jitsu. People don't really care. And it goes for every sport. Like the Boston Celtics won the NBA title last year. This year, someone else is going to win it, or they might win it again. But at the end of the day, the only people that really care are those that are around them all the time, the ones that are really involved. And I don't care if Adele wins or loses. I love her the same. Yeah, I care whether she's happy or sad, and that usually comes with winning or losing. But that doesn't mean I love her any less if she loses. So really understanding that is important. And just understanding that there's a bigger purpose to life than winning jiu-jitsu competitions. They could be a vehicle to a better life, and, challenging yourself and achieving goals is always great in whatever you do, but it's not the be-all and end-all, because there'll be a day when, there's so many legends now, and we saw them at ADCC still competing, but some of them that, there's some people in that ADCC arena that who wouldn't know who Marcelo Garcia is. You know what I mean? And he's the GOAT, in my opinion. So how can we put all our focus on what we do on competition if at the end of the day, you're not always going to be remembered for that, but you will be remembered for how you affect people and how you made people feel, and they might attach that to meeting you at a competition, but they're not going to just turn around and be like, oh, Adele's a great person because she won ADCC. That's not how it works, man. So really just making sure that they understand that, and that they understand that they're cared for regardless, and that they understand that they are enough as a person regardless of a result is so important. And I think that the more people openly talk about this, the better it is. I don't want to share too much because I don't think it's my conversation to have, but there's a good video of Wagner and Andre after Adele beat Jasmine, and they were talking in Portuguese. And Wagner was basically just saying how incredible it is that he has the opportunity to still be here at his age, and he doesn't really care. Obviously he wants to win, but he doesn't really care about how it goes. He just cares that he gets to share this with his family, and he gets to share this with the world, and he gets to be here. And that's such an amazing message, because it's true. I don't care that he lost. I think it's amazing what he did. I don't care that he got silver. You know what I mean? And you saw the respect Mika had for him in the final. Mika doesn't care that he beat him. Mika cares that, that they had a great performance and that they gave their best and they challenged themselves. And that's what they care about. And so I think it's important to keep that at the forefront.
Yeah. As a coach, first of all, I just want to say it's very refreshing to hear a coach who takes a holistic approach and actually does work on the mindset front. I have had many people that I've discussed, and they all agree that mindset is important. But when I actually drill down and ask many coaches, what mindset work do you do with your students? The answer is almost always, well, I don't do that. I do the technique. And I think that's a mistake. And I think you would probably agree with that from what you're saying. How do you actually integrate this with a training session? Because most coaches, they kind of think of their job as being I'm the jiu-jitsu technical person. What does mindset teaching look like, and how do you actually coach people through this?
Yeah, so we have a class at my gym or a session at my gym called professional class. And people think it's because when I first started doing it, which was years ago, I copped a lot of flack. Oh, they're trying to be bigger than what they are, or they're trying to do this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I'm bringing a professional mindset to the training session. So we literally have a session where I focus on your mindset towards competing or jiu-jitsu while doing jiu-jitsu. So I constantly have conversations with people, constantly point out one of the two big things that I talk about as a coach, more from a technical standpoint, is decision-making and energy expenditure. These two things are not techniques, they're mindsets, what decisions you make under pressure and how much energy you use under pressure. These are mindset things. So I actively talk about it all the time. Anytime that I see something on social media or someone messages me or I speak to a coach or another athlete or whatever, and it's an important message, I'll send that to my athletes. They probably get sick of it. I sent one about Tom Brady to like 10 people last night because I know from the day that we had, they needed to hear that and they needed to stay on track. It's just, again, it's that attentiveness to detail is important, but also like, don't just expect it's going to come. People think that, more experience I get, I'll get stronger mentally. Or when I beat an opponent, I'll be stronger mentally. No, you already either have it or you don't. You just got to unlock it. It's either there or it's not. You either want it or you don't want it. You just have to unlock it. Well, how do we do this? We focus on it every single day. How do you get better at leg locks? You do them every single day. It's very easy. How do we get better at not being nervous for competition? Well, that comes from your understanding of your own preparation. If you feel like you prepared 100% and you've given absolutely everything and you didn't miss a session, you did all your recovery, you ate well, most people are pretty calm going into a match because they're like, well, there's nothing more I can do. It's when you miss sessions or you didn't try as hard as you should have, or you didn't do your study, where you start to have these little doubts where you're like, I didn't do enough. That's on you. You got to take responsibility for that. So same thing, man. Take responsibility for your mentality. How are you approaching training? I tell my guys all the time, we train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That should be a priority. So what are you doing Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday? If you're going out, eating lollies, drinking Coca-Cola or all these things that are not going to help you the next day, that's a decision that you've made that you need to take responsibility for, and nothing I can show you technique-wise will fix that. You need to be able to make sure that you're doing the right things. Now, I know, and one of my biggest mentors and absolute legend, Adele Fornarino, I used to live with him. He's still one of my closest mentors, and I absolutely love him. He used to drink Coca-Cola every day. So I'm not saying drinking Coca-Cola will negatively affect your performance. I'm just giving an example of if you do something you shouldn't be doing because it affects you, then you need to be careful. But sometimes it could be the opposite, man. Let's take sleep, for example. If you tell me you get 4 hours of sleep and you train like a maniac and you recover really well, I'm not going to tell you to sleep longer because it's working for you. But you need to get to that point where you understand yourself and your body and what works for you. And again, everything, and your listeners are probably going to get sick of it, everything comes back to taking responsibility. Don't blame me if you're tired. Blame yourself. Don't go less in training because you're tired. That's your fault. You should have gone to bed earlier. So we do a lot of it, man. Yeah, we have a session dedicated to that. And that's where Adele started with me in those sessions. And that's where it grew from there. And all my athletes have either done them or go through the sessions. And it's a big focus I put on them.
Nice. Are there any resources you've made around this? I know that you have a Patreon for people who aren't able to come train with you in person. If people wanted to actually check this out, do you have a place where those live? I just ask because I find there is a real dearth of that kind of content out there. There is no shortage of people who will tell you how to do a heel hook, but it's really hard to get good mindset advice or just advice on how to be a better pro in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so I definitely have the Patreon, which I'm active on all the time. I think I've had it for 4 or 5 months and I've got like 150 videos on there. So I do a lot on there. But I also do mentor programs. So my mentor programs are basically, the easiest way to explain it is if you think of like a a lifting program where your coach will give you a program. Today I'm going to do chest and you have to do exercise A, B, C, and D. I do that for jiu-jitsu. So I'll get your schedule and I'll program in everything you're supposed to do for that training session, what you're supposed to focus on, the key points in that. Then you'll write me notes. You send me your notes. I'll read your notes, or you send me video. I'll watch the video. We'll do a review. And then that goes for 6 weeks. And over that 6 weeks, I help build your mindset. I help build your skill base, and I completely focus on an individual game for you. And again, all my athletes have been through that program. The program is designed to help you transition into that yourself and see how you can do that yourself. It's not designed to be, an ongoing process where I work with you for years. Obviously, that is possible. I have, I think, about 5 or 6 athletes that I work with full time. But again, it's hard for me to take athletes on because you need to show me that you're worth my time. And I'm not saying that in an arrogant way where I'm like, I'm better than you, my time. But my time is precious, like I said. I want to spend as much time with my daughter as possible. I want to spend as much time with my students as possible. And I also want to spend as much time with myself, being mentally healthy, but also physically healthy. So I don't want to do the work because I will do a lot of work to help you if you're not doing the work. So it takes a little while to build that relationship and that bond. But you can reach out to me. I've said this many times on podcasts. You can reach out. We can talk about it. But don't be upset if I send you in a different direction because, again, man, I spoke to you about this off camera. I don't want to be the face of anything. That's what Adele's for. She's the superstar. I just like to be in the background and do my thing. So I don't need any high profile athletes to validate myself. I'm more than happy to help, but I don't need to be validated by who I work with or what they've done. I'm happy within myself.
Totally get it. Now, I would love to get your perspective on this. I won't name names or anything, but in any combat sport, or really any sport in general, there's always going to be people who succeed despite the fact that they don't act the way that most people would think of as professional, right? There's people who they seem to break all of the rules, but because they're just good enough or they're in the right place at the right time, they succeed anyway. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's an issue with that approach? I can tell you, I personally, I am not a fan, and this is maybe me just as a personality type, but I'm not a fan of athletes in any sport who come across as wildly unprofessional. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether you think there's a place for that or whether you really wish everyone were more like Adele if possible.
In personal opinion, I'd prefer them to be more like Adele, especially if I was working with them. I think I'd struggle to work with someone that wasn't. But I look at it more as like, not so much are they not acting like professionals, but are they consistent in what they're doing is more important, in my opinion. So like we look at professionals as you have to be clean cut, you have to do this and that. That's not necessarily true. You just have to do the work that gets you to the elite level on a consistent basis. Now, again, man, John Jones is a perfect example. Like partying for him was consistent, right? He didn't do it once and win a fight. He did it all the time. So like for me, that's a trigger that's working for him. Now, would it work for everybody? No. Do I think it's the right thing to do? No. But if I had John Jones as a student, I wouldn't be stopping him because it's obviously working. And that goes for anyone. I'm not big into trash talk and the social media trash talk, but if you're consistent with it and that's how you are and you're building your brand, and I have my own thoughts on brand building, but then you're doing what's true to you and that's probably helping you. It's when you go away from that I think it's negatively affects. So in terms of like acting like a professional, it's not clean cut and it's not one way. I see it one way in terms of this is how I'd like my athletes to be. But I think it's like, let's take Craig, for example. I'll say Craig because he's a friend of mine. His lifestyle is not a lifestyle I would want to live, but he's able to compete at a consistently high level and has his whole career living the way he wants to live. But I still believe he's a professional. He just doesn't do it the way that we think it should be done. So as long as you're consistent in your habits and you're consistently doing what you need to do to stay at that high level, then you're probably doing the right thing. And then you get into morals and values and are you affecting people in a negative way? That's a whole different topic and one I would never agree with a lot of these athletes on social media and stuff. I think it's not me, and I think it's way past what you need to do. But in terms of their technical ability and their ability as athletes and professionals, it doesn't always have to look as clean cut as, drinking your 4 liters of water and sleeping 8 hours and not going out to nightclubs and
Yeah, definitely. Now, one last thing I wanted to just ask you. So far, we've been talking about what greatness takes, what it looks like at the highest levels. And you've really underscored the importance of professionalism if you really want to do this at an A+ level. I would ask, though, is there a place for that mindset for people who aren't professionals? And the reason I ask this is, I mean, there is the old adage that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Do you feel that everyone should kind of take that approach? I mean, you could argue, for instance, that even a 2-day-a-week hobbyist with no aspiration should probably do things like show up on time and eat well and sleep well. And, that kind of stuff might just be a good foundation for everyone. Or is that something that you especially focus on when you're dealing with the pros?
Yeah, it more depends. I don't think it goes between hobbyist and pro or hobbyist and athlete. I think it goes more between what your goals are. As a hobbyist, if your goals are to get as good at jiu-jitsu as you possibly can while you're working a full-time job and being a parent and having a social life, then you would just prioritize the 2 days that you are able to train and try and be professional on those days. You don't have to do 7 days a week. The athletes, obviously, if your goals are bigger, then it's going to take more. I don't think there's a right or wrong in that instance. I just think, again, it comes down to what your goals are and prioritizing those. But again, anytime you start to act like a professional in anything, it doesn't even have to be sport. It could be I'm trying to open up another gym with one of my mates at the moment. And the amount of real estate agents I have to deal with that aren't professional blows my mind. And it's like, you're not professional in your business, but if I sign this lease, you're going to get a mint commission, way more than I earn in jiu-jitsu. So I don't think it really comes down to like a hobbyist and professional. It really comes down to just what your goals are. And, take the real estate agent again. His goal is just to lease that building, not to give the best service that he possibly can. And he's probably going to accomplish that with the bare minimum. Again, it's not something I ever agree with. I value work ethic and hard work over everything. And I do that in all aspects of my life, which is why I don't do much outside of jiu-jitsu, because I cannot commit to anything that I don't want to give 100% to, because I just don't feel right when I do that. So it really just comes down to, the person and how they're going. But try it. If I can give any advice to the hobbyists or athletes that want to maybe attempt this approach, try it for a week, try it for a day, try it for a month, set a goal. I've got a bunch of 16-year-old blue belts that I help mentor and coach. I've got them writing in journals every day, every time they train. I've never checked the journal. I don't care what they write. It's about being consistent at something that's easy to do. So when they do get to an adult and they do have to do certain things, they're already building good habits, because writing in a journal is easy. It's in your bag. You've got a pen. It takes 30 seconds. It has nothing to do with what you write. Now, they're going to write what is beneficial for them, but that's not the point. The point is they're creating good habits so when they want to become professionals, eventually, if they do, those habits are already ingrained. That goes to the next level. I was speaking to Adele yesterday, and we were talking about when she wants to compete next. And I was like, look, give me a rough schedule so I can start programming for you and start putting in what we need to fix from ADCC and whatnot. And she's basically doing what I've done for her the last few years herself, just at a less intensity. And when she told me that, I didn't go, oh no, she's not going to need me anytime soon. Like, no, that's amazing, because now she's acting like a professional without being told. She's already put it in. It's a habit now. When she goes to training, it's a habit to have goals. It's a habit to turn up on time. It's a habit to do the right things. She's done that over years now. The consistency comes and then the results follow. So like, those are the kind of things that, I think separate, and you could do it so easy. It doesn't always have to be the biggest task. It could be something super simple. I want to be at class 10 minutes before every class. Now, if you rock up 15 minutes before class, no matter what happens in class now, you've achieved your goal. Great, success. Tick that day off as a success. You could get bashed. You could get mounted and smothered and buggy choked and whatever. Don't matter. Don't worry about it. You set a goal and you achieved it. That's a good habit to start.
I like how get buggy choked has now just become synonymous for worst day of my life.
Oh, bro. It's I'm old and not flexible. I can't buggy choke at all, but I've obviously got the young kids that try and buggy choke me all the time. I'm like, you realize that if you just improved your guard retention, you wouldn't have to do this.
Well, hey, if people want to learn jiu-jitsu from you and they're not in Perth, how can they find you? How can they contact you on Instagram or wherever you like, or how do they follow your Patreon?
Yeah, so JakeOD_Essence BJJ or Jake O'Driscoll on Instagram is the easiest way to contact me. I'm pretty active in terms of replying, and I will reply. I think that's a big thing I learned early on from some of the elite level guys. Sometimes you can really change someone's perspective or, help them with just a reply to an Instagram message. I think it's a big deal. So I will reply. My Patreon and my mentor programs, there's a link in my bio on those. Or if you can't find it, just message me and I'll point you in the right direction. I'm happy, like I said, I'm happy to work with people. I'm happy to help as much as I can. Just reach out and we can see what we can do.
Amazing, sir. Well, I will put links to all of that in the show notes to make it easy for people to find. I'll also put a link to all of our stuff. Everything we make lives at BJJMentalModels.com. The entire podcast has always been free. Every episode is there. The newsletter's there as well, plus our database of concepts. I always recommend that people consider signing up for BJJ Mental Models Premium if they haven't already. Reasons you might want to join that: we've got a massive catalog of audio-style jiu-jitsu courses on strategy, tactics, concepts, mindset, mental models. Jake, the reason I ask you about this stuff is because, again, we make this stuff because I don't find much of it out there. So I'm always excited when I find someone else who talks about this stuff. We also offer premium podcasts that you can only get as a member of BJJ Mental Models Premium. As I mentioned earlier, we just launched a new one. The inaugural guests were Adele and Jake. I thought that one came out awesome. So sign up there. And if you go up to our coaching tiers, you can actually get direct coaching from quite literally some of the best black belts in the world, many of them who went off to ADCC to compete this year. And beyond that, you also get access to our awesome community. We've even started providing business and coaching services. You can get those in our pro tier, but I'll put everything at bjjmentalmodels.com. So please take a look if you haven't already. Link in the show notes to my stuff and to Jake's. But Jake, thanks so much for coming by. Man, this was super fun. Glad we got to do this.
No, I really appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I've been a big fan of your work for a long time, man. So it's a really honor to be on the podcast and try and share a little bit of what I do.
Oh, thanks, man. That means a lot to me. Thanks to the listeners, too. Really do appreciate everyone hanging out with us here, and we will talk to you next time. See you soon.